you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are ESPN's Mark Ogden and Martin Ziegler from The Times. Welcome to you both. But before we chat, let's quickly run you through the back pages. And we'll start with the Mirror on a story that dominates many of the back pages as Ange Postecoglou snaps back at his critics. Ange's anger is the headline. He claims he will be a success at Nottingham Forest. To The Sun, and they cover quotes from Ruben Amorim, where he admits only results will actually stop Sir Jim Ratcliffe from sacking him. They also cover Graham Potter's imminent appointment as the Sweden manager and a fresh injury blow for Chelsea and Cole Palmer, now not expected back until the end of November. In the Express, if I get time, I always end up a winner. That's their headline. They also report on Ruben Amorim thanking Sir Jim Ratcliffe for his support and a potential England return from the current traitor star, Joe Marler. More of those stories on the back page of The Star as well. Plus, how Alan Shearer believes Erling Haaland will be the man to break his Premier League goal-scoring record. 260 Premier League goals. That's incredible. In the Eye, they report on the future of Crystal Palace defender Marc Guehi. They say the club is keen to avoid him moving to another Premier League club, and that could mean a transfer abroad, perhaps to Barcelona. And this exclusive in The Telegraph with Steve Borthwick set to leave Owen Farrell out of England's squad for the autumn internationals. We'll come to that a bit later in the programme as well. But Mark, Martin, great to see you as always. We have to talk about Ange Postecoglou. It dominates a lot of the back pages. He's had a couple of weeks during this international break, Mark, to think about the fact that Nottingham Forest are winless, the fact that the fans have turned, the fact that the pressure is really just ramping up game after game. But he's come out fighting. He's come out bullish. He's obviously had a look at his stats and his records. And he's been quite forthright in his defence of his record. What did you make of this extraordinary press conference?
Well, that's Ange's style, isn't it? And I guess he's under pressure, and he's under big pressure because the fans have already begun to turn at Forest. So he's come out fighting. And I guess, you know, if Ange isn't going to fight for himself, then nobody else is. So he's basically launched a staunch defence of his record. He's been a success at every club he's been at. You know, the success at Tottenham last season, he won a major trophy, which is a success. The league form last season wasn't a success, which is why he lost his job in the end, finishing, I think, 17th. So, you know, he's right to defend his record, but equally you have to judge him on what he's done at Forest and judge him on his last maybe 10, 12 months in a job in the league. And his league form isn't great over the period of time now. And I think the situation at Forest is that, you know, the fans are very sceptical of his appointment because, you know, Nuno had a certain style. He got them very successful, got them into Europe, had a fallout with the owner. And the owner's basically decided on a whim to appoint Ange Postecoglou. So Ange has got a lot of kind of sceptics to turn around. They didn't want him there in the first place. The form hasn't been great at all. It hasn't won a game yet. This whole 007 nickname, you know, no goals, no wins, 7 defeats. It's not looking great for him. So he has to come out fighting because nobody else is going to fight his corner when he's in a situation like he's right now.
I understand him being so defensive over his record, but one of the things that really piqued my interest in this press conference, Martin, was the fact that he said, I just don't fit in. Not here, just in general, he says. If you look at the back page of the Mirror, Ange's anger is obviously the headline. But when you look at actually get to the finer details of what he's saying perhaps he doesn't fit in with the regulation and the way the other managers perhaps fit in this Premier League era. This outsider mentality, do you agree with him? Do you feel like he is an outsider and that's how he's being viewed by the British press?
I think he's always liked to sort of position himself as some kind of sort of maverick. Back in the day at Celtic and when he went to Spurs and then now at Forest, I think that kind of suited him to say, you know, he's not part of the establishment. He brings his own brand, and that's always worked quite well for him. Obviously, you look at the facts. Nottingham Forest spent most of last season trying to hope to get into a Champions League place. That's how well they were doing. And it is completely collapsed, isn't it? And so, you know, no matter what his record has been, no matter that, you know, his trophy record and what he's delivered, you know, the ball facts are there. And I think he did I read something like a 5-minute monologue all about him and, you know, whether he fits in, and he's not part of the normal perhaps manager who might be in the Premier League. But I just think it's as Mark says, no one else is going to defend him. He's going to have to do it himself.
Yeah, he really is. Looking at the back page of the Star headline, Flatline, Ange fears he'll be toast just days after finding an apartment. He says, I've just moved into a new apartment. Maybe that was a bad idea. If he loses in the next match against Chelsea on Saturday afternoon, Mark, could he be gone? Could the house hunt have all been in vain?
Well, it could be gone. I just hope he's renting and hasn't bought the place. But, we'll wait and see, won't we? Listen, I mean, Chelsea's a tough game. We know that. Then he's got Porto in midweek in the Europa League. Then it's Bournemouth, Bournemouth are flying right now. And then there's a kind of irony the week after that, they got Man United at home, which, Ange lost his job after beating Man United in the Europa League final. I mean, who knows what situation Ange and Ruben Amorim will be in by the time we get to that game in just, I think, 2 weeks' time. But, in terms of tomorrow, of course, I mean, Marinakis at Forest is known to be a very impatient owner. We saw that with Nuno. How on earth he could get rid of Nuno after what he brought to Forest last season? Look, the style of football might not be the most attractive to watch, but it was successful for Forest. And the Forest fans love Nuno, and they've got a guy in there now who plays a completely different way of football to Nuno. And he's got this kind of, like you said, this outsider mentality, it's wearing a bit thin now, this Ange, isn't it? Because he said it last season at Tottenham that he was mocked for his kind of Australian accent, which I don't know anybody that's kind of said, he's Australian, he shouldn't be managing the Premier League. It's just, I think it's Ange's little siege mentality. He's trying to kind of maybe convince himself that he's right for the job. But, the only way he's going to prove himself to be right for the job is to win some football matches. And right now, he hasn't won a single one for Nottingham Forest. And that's why he's under pressure. And that's why, yes, he could go at the weekend if they lose to Chelsea.
Yeah, big game against Chelsea, that one, isn't it? Speaking of big games, Manchester United going to Anfield to take on Liverpool. And Ruben Amorim's on the back page of The Sun here. Smell a rat is the headline. Amorim knows only results will stop Sir Jim from sacking him. This comes after Sir Jim publicly backed him and said a manager like Amorim needs about 3 years to prove that he is the right man for the job. Mark, I know I'm going to come back to you because you cover Manchester United. Ruben Amorim then, under no illusions that his boss might like him, but he still has to deliver results.
Yeah, I think Amorim's realistic. He knows that the results can't continue as they are at United. Look, they look like they're doing a little bit better than last season, but they're not doing well enough. And so far this season they've beaten 2 promoted teams, and the win against Chelsea was against a Chelsea team that was down to 10 men for a good 80 minutes at least. So he has to do better than that. And I think he knows that Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming out saying what he said last week was great copy, it was great headline, and in the moment it was great news for Ruben Amorim. But I do remember last season that 3 weeks before he sacked Erik ten Hag, Jim Ratcliffe said he was a very good coach. So words don't really matter in football because the results will dictate everything. It's just like what we're saying about Ange Postecoglou. If you don't win enough football matches, no matter who you are, eventually you'll lose your job. And Amorim is in that situation now where they've got a really, really tough game at Anfield at the weekend. United have got a really bad record there in recent years, and they've had some hammerings there as well. So he needs to get a result, and he needs to get a result quickly. And what a better place to turn it around. If you win at Anfield, all of a sudden he's got back-to-back Premier League wins for the first time since he took charge. They'll have won there for the first time since 2016, and they'll have beaten their biggest traditional rivals, and that would be a real kind of springboard to go on to something else. But the flip side is that if they lose there, then they're back to square one in terms of pressure on his job.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Manchester United, isn't it? It's inconsistent. You don't know which Manchester United you're going to get. As for the Liverpool side of things, in the back page of the Mirror, just along that right-hand column there, Slot saying, it's time for my Reds to react. This comes off the back of 3 successive defeats in all competitions for Liverpool. The first time that's ever happened to Slot as a manager. Martin, how does he navigate then this uncharted territory? How does he rally the troops to ensure that 3 successive defeats doesn't turn into 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, I mean, it's in many ways the perfect game for him to end that because, as Mark says, they've got a great recent record against Manchester United there, and yes, he accepts it's been difficult for some of his big new signings. They've spent so much money. Getting them to click hasn't been easy. So all he can do, I think, is go back to the basics that brought him such success last season, concentrate on that, focus on that, but try and explore, why has Mo Salah not hit the heights that he did last season? Why is Florian Wirtz not? I think he said he'd been unlucky. He said, but with more luck, he could have got a load more assists and a couple of goals, but. I think maybe there's a bit more to it than that, and maybe he's trying to protect his new signings from criticism. So I think he needs to try and basically return to the values and what he brought to the club last season, and perhaps not tinker too much with what he hopes to do with the new signings quite yet, and get back to a sort of a level basis.
Yeah, it could be a defining moment for Arne Slot, couldn't it, in his Liverpool career? Just quickly then, gents, I'll start with you, Mark. A prediction of what you think is going to happen on Super Sunday. Liverpool hosting Manchester United. How's it going to go?
I just think Liverpool are going to win. I look at the United midfield and, they haven't really got a functioning midfield because Casemiro's had a busy international break with Brazil. He's come back. Will he be fit? When he is fit and he plays, he's been indifferent this season. Agate, Mainu, they're not ideal in that position. And Bruno Fernandes hasn't got the discipline to play in the two. So I think ultimately it'll be a game that's decided in midfield, and Liverpool's midfield is better than Man United's by some distance.
Martin?
Yeah, I actually think I've kind of got a feeling that Alexander Isak is going to announce his arrival in uncertain terms in this match. I think I've seen flashes, so far, but obviously, he missed the start of the season, and perhaps now we'll be able to see something.
Okay, we're going to hold you both to your predictions and check back in with you when you're next on Back Pages tonight. Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. Martin, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in the eye. Barcelona look to snap up Guehi. Could Marc Guehi be leaving Palace to join Barcelona? That's next.